Once we've got the isometric drawn, next we're going to begin working on the section view. So we've got the base unit. Um, Be sure to create the layout sheet, sheet 1 of 2. Next we'll begin working on the section view of it. So you're going to want to get out of ISO draft mode. All you got to do in the status bar, simply press on ISO draft to deactivate it. So it should put you back in the rectangular mode. We need an XREF, and there was a second sheet that I gave you. So I'm going to type in XREF, XREF. I'm going to go attach image and look for that typical block basement section. Now when I hit open, the scale that I'm going to specify, this sheet happens to be half of an inch. Half the inch equals a foot. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2, and 12 inches in a foot gives you a scale factor of 24. So I'm going to type in 24, hit OK, and simply select a area in isolation. So now I can exit out of XREF. If you look at this drawing, there's a lot of different leader lines, and here's your 16 by 8 CMU. But if you follow that down, below it all is a 16 by 8 concrete footer with longitudinal reinforcement. There's a few notes here too. It says wall stiffener number 4 rebar. Number 4 rebar. Rebar comes in schedules of 8. And 4/8 is going to be 1/2 inch. This is 1/2 inch rebar. It's kind of hard to see in this resolution picture, but that's what we need. So we'll begin by drawing this rectangle of this footer, and we're going to place this steel inside of it. So check your snap settings. Make sure your snap settings are set up. I've already got mine set. I'm going to press rectangle, and then some random area in model space, I'm going to pick a point. Press dimensions, type in 16, enter, 8, enter, and simply select a quadrant. That's going to be my footer. Now that rebar, if you look close at the rebar, there's not just one piece of rebar. Excuse me. There happens to be 2 pieces. So let's kind of look at it. I would say that the first piece is about 1/3 away from the left edge. Second piece is about 2/3 away from the left edge, or 1/3 away from the right edge, if you follow me. Not only that, that rebar, well, it's closer to the bottom of the footer. You see all this weight, all the weight of this structure summarizes, it culminates right here at the very bottom. So they're going to put that rebar closer to the bottom to keep it from cracking. Not only that, if you notice, these are within a trench. So these basements are dug within the dirt. So it fills up with water. And if it fills up with water, the place that stays wet longest is going to be at the bottom. Concrete does absorb water, so that's the reason why they put the rebar closer to the bottom. So, but we need to put our rebar in here. And this one's kind of tricky. We need it to be 1/3, 2/3 the way across the span. But we also need it to be 1/3 of the way from the bottom. So the ratio that we're talking about here is a 2-to-1 ratio. Well, radius and diameter are also a 2-to-1 ratio. So this is kind of tricky, but what I'm going to do next is press circle command. I'm going to select the midpoint of the bottom, and I can either select the midpoint up top or the 2 endpoints across the horizontal bottom. Then I'm going to select this circle. Once it's selected, I right click. I'm going to scale. You'll find scale modify command in the right click. So I'm going to scale it. Now, naturally, scale command, just like move or copy, wants a base point. This base point is a place for that object to expand or contract from. So I'm going to select the midpoint of the circle or the midpoint of the line. Once I do that, well, how much do I want to expand or contract by? I want to expand or contract by 1/3, 1/3. What that does is this. The upper quadrant, well, that's going to be 1/3 the height of this footer. The diameter across is going to be 1/3 of the length across. This footer happens to be 16 by 8. 16 by 8 in ratio is 2-to-1. So radius and diameter are 2-to-1. So what this does is I imagine that there's an intersection. If I were to follow the upper quadrant across horizontally and follow this left quadrant vertically, there would be an intersection right about here to put my rebar. Same thing on the opposite side. So next, I pick circle, but I let circle drop down. I go to circle center diameter. Now I'm going to make sure that polar tracking is on, of which it is, and I'm going to track this quadrant upright, vertically. But I'm not going to pick anywhere. Next, I come out to the upper quadrant of the circle, and I'm going to track due west. What AutoCAD will find is an apparent intersection between. So I'm going to select that as the center of my circle. Now the diameter of this rebar, again, is stated as 0.5. So I type in 0.5. Next, I can actually select my circle and erase it. This rebar, being that it gets sectioned through, well, we need some type of hatch pattern. Not only that, it's a relatively small component of a relatively large assembly. So we really want to add some ink when it prints. We really want to make sure that it's clear to the reader. So I'm going to press hatch pattern. And generally in this situation, what I'll pick is solid. Now you can choose a color if you wanted to. I don't know, like a blue, steel blue. And I'm going to pick inside the circle as a hatch point, and then simply press close or right click to enter. Now I'm going to select my circle, go to the modify ribbon, go to mirror. I want to mirror this across a vertical axis to make a horizontal copy. But your footer needs to be hatched as well. The pattern, if you look at this assembly, this pattern is going to be concrete. Now, AutoCAD does have a hatch pattern for that. If you go press on hatch, the pattern to look for is AR conch. AR conch. So I'm going to press AR conch. Maybe I'll change color to something gray, kind of looks like cement, you know. And I'm going to do a preview. Well, what I'm looking at is the triangles and specks. Triangles and specks, and what that is aggregated cement concrete. So I might play with the scale a little bit. Let me try, I'll go up here and replace 1 with 0.5. Let's see how that looks. Maybe I want to go a little less than that. Let me try 0.375. Okay, that don't look half bad to me. I'm looking at the triangle in relation to the circles. So once I find a scale I think fits, I'm simply going to left click inside there and right click to exit. So that's going to be my footer. Next, what happens is this. Once this concrete footer sets up and it cures, that's going to be what they call cast in place. They're going to set forms and pour ready mix concrete. But once that cures, next they're going to hire the masonry worker. Now the masonry worker, they're going to mix together that mortar we talked about. So we need mortar seams here. And we also need a block. Well, where can I find a block? Here's the good news. We've already drawn one. In this section view, you're looking at the right side of a block. So I'm going to select my block, right click, copy selection. I'm going to make not just one copy, but 2. So I make 2 copies. Now, when they lay these, and if you look at this assembly, one block, you're looking at the edges and the end shell. But the other block, there's a hatch pattern in the walls, in the walls, the face shells. So what that is one of these blocks has been chopped through the center. So one gets sectioned, one does not. So what to do is this. One of these, I'm going to press hatch pattern, and the best pattern to use for this is AR sand, AR-sand. So I'm going to do a preview and see how that looks. Oh, okay, that don't look too bad. My scale is 0.375 if you recall. So I'm going to press here and press here. And then right click to exit. So now, this is where it gets sticky. I can make the mistake of picking lines when I go to move this. The objective is to begin moving this on top of the footer. But I can make a mistake and pick the hatch pattern and not pick the block, or vice versa. Same thing here. So the easiest thing to do is select the objects, right click. In the right click, you're going to find group. So let group fly out. I'm going to press group. What that does is it sticks it all together. Now it's all stuck together. So let me do the other one. Select it. Or you could come up here to the ribbon and press group. What that does is it combines all those together. Now, here's the deal. You've got cured footer here. You've got precast cement masonry unit here. What we need, what binds these together, is that layer of mortar, that layer of grout. Even heard people call it mud. Yeah, okay, mud. So, okay, what to do next? We're going to draw a layer of grout. You see, this is dry, these are dry. We need something to bind them together. That's going to be that grout. So I'm going to press rectangle command and pick another random place and space. Press a point, press dimensions. If you recall, the width of a block is 7 5/8, which is the decimal is going to be 7.625. Now it wants the width of the rectangle. That's going to be the thickness of your grout, and as we previously discussed, those are going to be 3/8, which as a decimal is 0.375. And then I randomly pick a quadrant. So there's a sliver of mortar for me, a sliver of grout. Next I pick hatch. Again, you're going to want to use a AR sand. You see, mortar contains sand, and sand likes to be level. So I'm going to press sand and do a preview. Well, I think it should be a little more dense than that. So I'm going to play with the scale of the hatch pattern a little bit. Maybe type in 0.25, quarter of the inch. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that don't look that bad, so I'm going to press. Here again, I'm going to group this together. I don't want to make a mistake of moving the rectangle without the hatch. So I select it, right click, group. Now, we're ready to begin stacking these blocks together. So I'm going to pick my mortar. The objective is to move it on top of this already cured footer. So I'm going to right click, MOVE move. Move wants that base point. The base point, if you look at the situation, the midpoint of the bottom of this grout needs to be on the top midpoint of the footer. Next, I'm going to put a block on top of that. Now this is where you got to be careful. So I'm going to select this block here. I'm going to right click, MOV move. You're going to want to pick the lower left or the lower right. You see, this block is going to sit on top of that mortar. So I'm going to pick the lower left. If I pick the lower left here, I need to pick the upper left of the grout. And what happens is there's no gaps or no intersections. Physically, that couldn't occur. And not just that, but you don't want gaps in your wall construction. So now that I've got one block on top of the footer, I need this other block. So what to do, I'm going to copy my grout from its lower left vertex to the upper left vertex of the first block. Then I'm going to select this block, MOVE move, pick the lower left vertex, and move it to the upper left vertex of my mortar. So, next, what I do is I kind of pause the construction right here. There's other things to worry about. So let me look at the footer again. Over here you got 4 inches of crushed stone, then you got an inch of sand. And you've got 4 inches of concrete slab and this bituminous joint between, which we'll discuss here in a minute. So, first things first, this 4 inch of crushed stone, if you look at it, it's level with the top of that footer. And the footer's height was only 8 inch, and you've got 4 inch of crushed stone. So what that means is I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint. So I pick line command, or type L spacebar. I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint out here. Now I'm going to draw this out at my discretion. So I don't know, I don't want to get too far away, but I don't want to get too close either. So I don't know, wherever you think your eye thinks it looks like it should terminate. So I draw one line from there. Now this is where it gets tricky and kind of got to follow along. I select that line, right click, copy selection. I want to copy it up 4 inch to give me the top of the stone. But then above that's an inch of sand, so I type in 5 inch. And then above that is 4 inch of concrete, so I type in 9 inch. That's called baseline dimensioning. Now, these two parallel lines up here, these are going to be your concrete slab. So I'm going to stretch those perpendicular against this block. Kind of like so. But you would never pour concrete right up against a wall like that. That's where this bituminous joint comes in. If you were to, and think of it this way, in the summertime, inside here, which is basement area, I'm going to show you over here. Inside here is going to be cool, while outside, summertime, well, it's going to be warm. And reverse in the winter. So in the winter, this is going to be warm, and outside here is going to be cold. What we're talking about is thermal expansion. So you would never pour concrete up against the wall like that. This is where this bituminous joint comes in. And what it is, bituminous, it's a mineral, but what it does is more important. A lot of people call it an expansion joint. So it allows that concrete to kind of expand a little bit when it's hot, or contract, and not put any pressure against that wall. If this slab ever put pressure against that wall, it'd kick out the wall from below. So we're going to draw this bituminous joint. It generally comes in rolls. You can find it at Home Depot or Lowe's. How to draw it is this. Pick rectangle command. And this upper end point, on this upper left end point at the top of the slab, I'm going to press there, press dimensions. Its thickness is going to be 0.5, and its height is going to be 4. And then you're going to want to pick quadrant number 4. Now here again, it's a relatively small component of a large assembly. So we're going to want to hatch that to add ink to it. So I'm going to press hatch pattern. Maybe just pick solid, that's fine. If you want to choose a color, that's fine too. Just make sure to hatch inside there. Now we're going to draw another very special line. You see, this construction actually technically goes on and on, but we're trying to zoom into the assembly of it. So the line that we're going to draw is called a continuous break line. And the typewritten command to type in is BREKLINE, break line. Kind of like your car, but spelled differently. So I type in break line. Kind of works like line command, so I'm going to pick this endpoint and this endpoint. But in addition, it wants to know where to put the break symbol. So I'm going to put the break symbol right here in the middle. What it does is put a zigzag line. What that does is tell the reader, well, this construction actually continues on. So let me make that a different color for you all to see, maybe like yellow. Okay, good. So now you might need to trim or extend things. So this line here, I might, see if I can extend that through. This line here, I might trim back just by stretching it. Okay, next, what we're going to do is we're going to need to hatch some of this stuff. So I'm going to pick hatch pattern. Down here is crushed stone. You're not going to find crushed stone, but the closest thing you will find is gravel. Gravel, gravel. So I look for gravel. Where's it at? Right here. And maybe give it a stone kind of color, like a dark gray or so. Let me look at the scale too. Ooh, way too dense. I'm set at 1/4 inch. So I need to ramp that up. Now stone comes in schedules. So I'm going to type in like the number 4. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that don't look half bad, so I click. Right click to exit. Above that it's going to be sand. We've already used the sand hatch pattern, so I'm going to pick hatch again. Look for AR sand. Where's it at? Okay. Right here. So maybe I'll pick a more sandy color, like a yellowish color. Let me check the scale though. Oh, way too sparse. So I'm going to change that to maybe 0.5. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that don't look half bad, so I click. Now above that is going to be AR concrete pattern. So I'm going to pick AR conc. Now watch this. I'm going to make a mistake purposely. I'm going to pick inside here. The concrete for the footer is the same as the slab. There's no difference between them. And what I'm implying is this. The properties that I selected of this concrete footer are different than the properties of the slab. So AutoCAD has a solution for that. In the Home tab, in the Properties ribbon, you'll find Match Properties. And the way it works is this. I press Match Properties. I left-click select the ones I like, and left-click change the ones I don't. Notice it matched the properties between them.